Hello, my name is Siobhan Harding and I work for the Women's Support Network. We work with a network of 14 women's centres across Northern Ireland in relation to issues that impact on women's lives, and most recently on the issues of poverty, debt, welfare reform and austerity. In terms of the Good Friday Agreement, it doesn't specifically mention poverty. It does, however, have a section on rights, safeguards and equality of opportunity, which allows for the right to equal opportunity in all social and economic activity, regardless of class, creed, disability, gender or ethnicity. It also has a section on economic, social and cultural issues, where it puts the requirement on any new Northern Ireland Assembly to progress work on a new economic development strategy. And such a strategy would work around the creation of jobs and opportunities for all people, so that everybody would be able to access the benefits and opportunities created through more jobs and more investment in Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement also talks about promoting social inclusion, increased economic growth, more focused targeting social need initiative, and lots of measures around tackling unemployment. And these obviously all feed in to poverty work and making sure that people in Northern Ireland are protected from the negative impacts of poverty. Moving on from the Good Friday Agreement, we have the Fresh Start Agreement, which included, very importantly, a commitment to introduce a welfare mitigations package for Northern Ireland to protect people in Northern Ireland from the harshest impacts of welfare reform and from a range of social security cuts which were coming in. This welfare mitigation package has been introduced to protect people from the bedroom tax and the benefit cap. We then saw in New Decade, New Approach much more talk about poverty within that agreement. And crucial to that agreement, under one of the priorities for a restored executive, under the heading of developing a fair and compassionate society which supports working families and vulnerable people, there was a commitment to develop and implement an anti-poverty strategy for Northern Ireland, which would obviously set out actions and details of areas of work to prevent poverty here. Also within New Decade, New Approach, we saw commitments to tackling paramilitarism, and that was to be one of the important priority areas for any programme for government. And we know that paramilitarism links to poverty in a number of ways, particularly when you look at things like paramilitary lending, and paramilitary lenders operate in deprived communities and they often target people on the lowest incomes. And we also look at the implications of paramilitary run organisations that operate in vulnerable communities and who can act as gatekeepers for those local communities and also starve other organisations of funding and opportunities, particularly where they're advocating against paramilitary activity and working to support the most vulnerable communities. We also saw a New Decade, New Approach talk about economic growth, particularly for the most deprived areas. And we saw it talk about the welfare mitigations package again. So it talked about extending the existing mitigations around the bedroom tax and the benefit cap beyond when they were due to end in 2020. New Decade, New Approach also talked about a review of the welfare mitigations package beyond the existing measures, so looking at strengthening of this package. And so we know that that review was carried out and published in October 2022 and made some really good, strong recommendations around the strengthening of the mitigations package. And that's something that we, as a Cliff Edge Coalition member, and Cliff Edge is a campaigning coalition which was set up to advocate for the extension and strengthening of the welfare mitigations package in Northern Ireland. So it's got the Welfare Mitigations Review committed to strengthening the existing mitigations, and that very much rhymes with our key strengthening asks, which are around resolving the universal credit 5-week wait, mitigating the 2-child limit, and increasing the protections for private renters affected by local housing allowance. So we can see in the various agreements, the Good Friday Agreement didn't specifically mention poverty, but committed to things like economic development and economic growth and tackling unemployment. And then we had the Fresh Start Agreement, which committed to a welfare mitigations package to protect people from the harshest impacts of welfare reform and poverty. And then we had New Decade, New Approach, which talked much more about this and committed to more things around dealing with poverty. And crucially, a crucial part of that was the development and implementation of an anti-poverty strategy for Northern Ireland, which would be a key supporting strategy to any programme for government coming out of that. We saw it also mention things like tackling paramilitarism and economic growth as well.